It's just a bunch of hocus pocus.
Lock up your children! Yes, Salem, we're back!
Hey guys, welcome back to Pop Culture with Pat. So today we are talking about the sequels to one of my favorite Halloween movies of all time, and that is Hocus Pocus. So in Hocus Pocus 2, three young women accidentally bring back the Sanderson Sisters to modern-day Salem and must figure out how to stop the child-hungry witches from wreaking havoc on the world. So this is one of those movies that I was just starting to think that we were never going to get because as of this next Halloween season, not this year, but next year, it's going to be about 30 years since the release of the original film. So I kind of was starting to give up hope, and I was like, we're just never going to get a sequel to this film at this point. Hocus Pocus is one of my favorite Halloween movies of all time. Like many of you guys, I'm sure it's become a tradition for me to watch this movie at least once every fall season, if not a couple times throughout spooky season for sure. And then I usually go down to Salem, Massachusetts every year to visit what's probably one of the biggest places for Halloween in the country and get to visit some of the filming locations from the original film as well. And I will tell you guys, I actually got to work on Hocus Pocus 2, but we will talk more about that. I'll give you guys my kind of story of how that all happened and what took place at the very end of this video, so make sure to stay tuned to the very end. So it's been about 30 years since the last time that we saw these Sanderson sisters, and now we are introduced to these three girls, which one of them, it is their birthday, and as part of their birthday celebration, they accidentally bring back the Sanderson sisters. And so similar to the first one, they have to find a way to stop the witches before it's too late. Unfortunately, this time around, Max, Danny, Allison, the bullies, and Thackeray Binks are not in this film, but we do get to see the return of the Sanderson sisters as well as Billy Butcherson. It was great to see Bette Midler, Sarah Jessica Parker, Cassie and Najimy back as the Sanderson sisters, because I remember at one point I thought I had heard like a rumor that they were possibly just going to recast everybody, and I was like, no, you can't do Hocus Pocus without having the witches in this film. So I was really happy to see that they came back, and honestly to me, especially from some of the early pictures that came out, they looked almost exactly as they did about 30 years ago, and I thought that they fit back into these roles almost seamlessly. You could just tell that they were having a lot of fun making this film and just interacting with one another, being back in that space of, you know, when they did the first one. So that was just really nice to see, being a big fan of the original Hocus Pocus. And I also love seeing Doug Jones reprise his role as Billy Butcherson. Again, to me, he pretty much looked the same as he did in the original film, so it was really cool to have him as back as well, because even though he wasn't as big of a role as the Sanderson sisters, I would say he was still a major part of that original film, so it was nice to have him back. And it stinks too, because from what I heard, I read online that Thora Birch, who played Danny in the original film, she was actually supposed to, she was working, I believe, on Hocus Pocus, but she had to drop out of the film because of scheduling conflicts or something to that degree. So I believe she was going to be the school principal for this movie, so it would have been nice to just see her character come back in some capacity. And then I can let you guys know that I went on a little tour for Hocus Pocus in Salem, Massachusetts, where we were supposed to have the guys Tobias and Larry Bagley, who play the bullies in the original film. They were supposed to be there. They weren't able to make it, but the guide on the tour was actually telling us that they were trying really hard to get the bullies into Hocus Pocus 2, even if it was maybe like an after credit scene or something like that. And like, you know, them hanging in the cages and just like having really long like hair and stuff like that as if they've been there the whole time. That would have been really funny, so a little bit of inside information there for you guys. Fans of the original will definitely find a lot of callbacks and references to the original film. They actually, without going into too much detail, they use some footage from the original movie, so that was really cool to see. But it was nice also just to have the witches, similar to the first movie where they had been dead for 300 years. When they show up in the 90s, obviously a lot has changed, so they're fish out of water of sorts, interacting with people and just the technology that had updated. And that's kind of what you have here again, where now, you know, we're in modern times and you have the witches interacting with different things. So you get some pretty good laughs out of that as well. And early on in the movie, we actually get to see a little bit of the Sanderson sisters backstory, you know, way back in the 1600s in Salem when it was just a tiny little village. And I actually I wasn't filming at that day. I'll just give you this tidbit of information real quick. But I had went down to Lincoln, Rhode Island, I believe it was, where they were actually building these sets for the villages and stuff that you see early on in the movie. So that was neat to see. But I honestly wouldn't have minded if we had even gotten a little bit more of that backstory in this film too. I thought that was really well done, and I liked all the actresses that they got to play the witches when they were kids. I thought they did a great job. As far as the new characters go, I like the character of Izzy, played by Belissa Escobedo. I apologize if I'm saying her name wrong. I liked her, and I also liked the character of Becca, played by Whitney. I thought that they were really likable characters, and the interactions that they had, especially with the Sanderson Sisters, made for some really funny moments throughout the movie. Overall, as far as the comedy in this film, I thought that for the most part that it did work. There were a couple times where some of the jokes maybe fell a little flat, but overall, I found myself laughing quite a bit throughout this movie and having a good time. There were a few characters in this movie that I just wasn't really that big of a fan of, unfortunately. One of them is the boyfriend of the character of Cassie in this movie. To me, he just kind of came off as like an idiot in the movie and not in a good way. So I didn't really care for them, and there was a couple other characters as well that I was like, I could have done without having them in the movie, unfortunately. And I would say, as far as the sequel goes, it's definitely not as dark as the original movie is, and I know this is a Disney movie, it's made for kids, but that original film definitely had a little bit more of like an edge to it, where you can see this is a little more modern Disney aspect, and so I could see some people not really caring for that. So is Hocus Pocus 2 as good as the original film? No. But honestly, I wasn't expecting it to be. I was just excited to see these characters back on the big screen. Granted, yeah, I know it's Disney Plus, so it's not technically the big screen, but I was just excited to get another film with these characters, to spend a little bit more time with them, learn a little bit more about their characters, which we got to with, you know, some of their origin story, which was really nice, and seeing Billy Butcherson back, that was awesome. I would have loved to have seen some of the other cast, and maybe if they do another movie, hopefully they don't wait too long this time, we could see some of those characters maybe still come back. That would be really cool. But overall, it was just something that ever since this project, it's been rumored for years, but when it officially got announced, I was super excited for this movie because, like I said, the original has become such a big part of my life. I watch it every single year, and getting to work on this movie made the experience even better. So overall, as far as a score goes, I'm going to give this an 8 out of 10. So it's definitely not a perfect film. It's got its flaws for sure. I understand that. But hey, I can't help it. I found myself watching this movie, and there was moments where I was smiling just because getting to see these characters on the screen again. So, but I want to hear what your guys' thoughts are. I know it's definitely not going to be for everybody, and I know some people probably are going to hate this film, and that's totally okay. But I want to hear what your thoughts are down below in the comments, so let me know. And as I promised, I'm going to talk about my experience of working on this film. So the movie had been rumored for years, finally got the confirmation that they were going to be making this thing, so I was like, okay, it's probably going to be at least filming out here to some degree in the Massachusetts, the New England area. I'm going to make sure that I am part of this film in some degree, in some way. I'm going to make it happen. That was like my goal. I was not going to be denied. So I kept an eye out for casting calls for extras. They sent that out. I applied. Was kind of not expecting anything to happen because I figured there was going to be a ton of people that applied for this thing. But sure enough, I got the invite to go down. So I ended up filming down. It was last year. So it's been about a year, which is crazy. Last year in Newport, Rhode Island. And I was filming down there for one night. I was actually supposed to be down there for a couple of nights, but I just wasn't able to make it work with scheduling and everything like that. But I was able to go down for the one night. And so if you guys, when you're watching the movie, it's about 52 minutes in-ish when the witches are at the Salem Scarefest, when they're like walking through, they go to an apple bobbing table. If you guys look really closely, I believe like on the right side of the screen, you'll see a person standing there who has fox ears, foxtail. That is me. So that is my 5 minutes to fame, more like a couple seconds to fame in this movie. But it was so cool. Like when the movie got released, I was looking for myself. Like I didn't watch, I was just kind of skimming through to see if my scene had made it in there. And I saw it, and oh man, like this weekend has been so wild. I've had a bunch of people reach out to me, comment on Facebook, tag me, you know, saying that they saw me in the movie. And just like all the love that you guys have shown has really been overwhelming. I can't thank you guys enough. The experience, though, it's going to be something that I never forget. Like I said, I've said multiple times in this review that the original film holds such a special place in my heart that the fact that I got to be a part of the sequel in any way is just incredible. When I was down there, I, no lie, was probably about 10 to 15 feet away from the Sanderson Sisters for a good chunk of the night when we were filming those scenes. And it was freezing that night, but it was totally worth it, getting to see them all done up in their outfits and everything. And actually, at one point, Kathy Najimy, who plays Mary, we had stopped filming for a second, and she was just thanking everybody, you know, saying thank you for being there and working on the film. And no, I am not lying when I say this. She was like, "You guys are all very special. You know, thank you so much, especially you." And points right at me. At first, I was like, "Oh, she wasn't like talking to me." But the people that I was there working on the film with that I had met that night, they were like, "No, she literally was pointing right at you." And I was just like dumbfounded. I didn't know what to say. So again, it's just something else that's like, that is a moment that I am not going to forget anytime soon. And being a big fall Halloween person, it was just so fun being on set because everything, you know, it was a Halloween celebration. We filmed in the fall time. It was like late fall, so it was getting pretty chilly. But just the atmosphere was great. Getting to see all the stands set up, everyone dressed up in all these different costumes. The theater that was there, they had like the old black and white movie monster, like the posters for those. So that was really cool. So yeah, man, it was just so much fun. Something I'm never gonna forget. I got to meet a couple really cool people down there that I hung out with for the night. It was great talking to them. Still keep in touch with them too. But I'm curious for you guys that either if you're new to the channel or if you've watched my videos before, if you've had the opportunity to work on a film as an extra or just do something else on a film in general. If you haven't, I definitely suggest you guys do it. If you're a fan of like films and stuff like that, because I think it's just so cool to get that experience, get to see some of the behind the scenes stuff. It's really fun and fascinating. So if you get the opportunity, definitely try and do that. I think that you'll enjoy it for sure. So thank you guys again if you've made it to this part of the video. I appreciate you guys listening to me gush about my experience of working on Hocus Pocus 2. It's something that, you know, just really means so much to me. So it was a lot of fun. I wanted to share it with you guys. So thank you again. If you guys are new to the channel, as always, please hit that subscribe button as well as the bell button next to it. That way you get notifications for all my new videos. Give this video a thumbs up. And as always, guys, please make sure to check back for more Pop Culture with Pat.